Here we are, the day before Thanksgiving 2020, and I have an issue that I'm worried about. And that is, I weigh more than I've ever weighed in my life, and we're about to enter the holiday season. That's not a good combination, my friend. Welcome to the show. My name is Roger Whitney. I am your host, and this show is dedicated to helping you not just survive retirement, but truly rock retirement by making lots of little intentional decisions. Don't worry, we're not talking about my weight today. We're going to talk about thankfulness, and we're going to answer some of your listener questions with my good friend, Tanya Nichols. But I was just thinking about this today. I'm thankful that I live in a place where I'm able to be well-fed. And to be honest with you, I don't think that's the issue. I think I eat pretty well and I exercise pretty well. Is this aging? I think it's aging, and I got some medication that's a side effect. But my self-image is going through some issues here. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you and how do you rock retirement. And let's start off with a little thankfulness in the What's That Mean segment.
Huh? What does that mean?
Thankful. It's a consciousness of benefit received from others. And that's interesting because it's something that's received from others, whereas grateful, we think of gratitude journals. We're going to talk about that in the Coaches segment with BW today, is showing an appreciation of kindness. So they're very similar. And I think these idea of thankfulness pairs well with what we talked about last week in terms of worry. Because one good habit to form when you're dealing with worry is thankfulness and gratitude. Because it turns that frown upside down in a mental way, or can help do that in terms of acknowledging all of the amazing things that are going on in your life. And there are a lot of them. And one of the biggest things that I am thankful for this year, there's a lot of them, by the way. I got this muscle pretty strong. It took a long time to get it there. But one of the things I'm most grateful for, and this is going to sound trite, but it's not, is you and this podcast. The interaction that we have via our 6-Shot Saturday email, via the voice messages, via the Live with Rogers, and the interactions we've had over the years, 6+ years now, has changed my life. And I am very conscious of the benefit that I've received from that, personally and in our business. And I want to make sure I show appreciation and continue to keep this show about you, not me, not business, not anything else. We were having this discussion internally, and whether it's the business end of things, the Rock Retirement Club, this show, we never want to lose this show being about helping you, which helps us figure out how do we rock life and how do we rock retirement. We don't want this ever to become something other than what it is from a business standpoint, because there's this pressure to build business-wise. And this show has never been about that. We don't even ask for things for the majority of the show. I mean, we talk about the Rock Retirement Club. We've talked about our advisory practice at times, but we've never sold, or we tried not to. And we want to respect that because we always want to just love on each other and good things happen. So I am thankful for you and I appreciate that. I just want to make sure I express that so you know it. Now let's go talk with Tanya. So before we dive into that turkey, let's make sure we answer some of your questions. And one of the people I'm most thankful for this year and being reintroduced to is Tanya Nichols from Align Financial. Hey, Tanya.
Hi. Thanks for having me back.
And one reason I'm thankful for you, other than your great personality and wicked smart mind, is that you noticed I missed answering part of someone's question last week. So we got to clean that up. I think it was Chris, right? Because we talked about second to die life insurance, but then he asked about long-term care.
Right. He thought he was too old.
And so let's make sure we address that. So Chris, and I appreciate you reminding me of that, by the way. So Chris is 73, and he's wondering if he's too late for long-term care insurance. And he's also worried about his wife, who is relatively younger than he is. And one is, yes, an agent that can go to multiple carriers definitely can help, which is what Chris asked. What are some of the nuances of that when you have an older spouse, younger spouse with long-term care?
One of the things that I thought when looking at Chris's question, he was asking about second to die life insurance. And there are these new hybrid policies that they have a life insurance component, but they also have a long-term care component. So I think that they even work for people in their 70s. And one of the good things about having a younger spouse is that could help with the pricing. But you do have to qualify health-wise.
Yeah, you still have to go through underwriting. Yep.
Yes. So I think those hybrid policies are probably the most interesting if you're older, but they're just a different way of doing it. You basically use an asset or an income stream to fund a life insurance policy. And then if you die or get sick, you can use the benefits for either scenario. So they can be just, I think, a little bit more flexible.
Definitely.
If you can qualify health-wise.
Yeah. So definitely, Chris, go back to February's theme, because we talked with an expert the entire month just on long-term care where we talk about those policies. And in your situation, it goes back to the question, what are you trying to solve for, right? Is it her having long-term care, because assuming you pass first, because you're older, because she will be single in this instance, and you want to make sure that she is secure in the event she has an issue? Or is it draining assets because you have an issue? What are you trying to solve for? And my suggestion would be the way to evaluate it is go get quotes on both type of policies for you and for her, and figure out how you can do those jointly maybe, and look at the numbers premium wise relative to the benefits and plug those into a bigger financial plan that hopefully you already have in place. And that will help you make the decision as to whether it's a yay or a nay. I just did this with a client. It wasn't the same situation age-wise, but we went through the entire process and eventually said, no, we don't need it. But we made the decision with as much information as we could get in front of us framed correctly. And it might also tease out whether you can even get it because of medication you take or something else. Process, strategy, tactic. That would be my suggestion. But definitely a broker can help you with the quotes and help you understand the trade-offs of the policy. They're probably not the one to help you make the decision unless they're really in a device frame rather than a cell frame. That would be my counsel. All right. Thank you, Tanya. So we can clean that up for Chris. I don't want to disappoint. And now our first question is from Anne on 403B options and Roth. So here's the question. Anne says she has funds in a 403B plan that could be converting to her Roth account. However, I have the option of taking a lifetime income from her retirement plan, I'm assuming via pension. And my husband and I are basically living on his pension at this point, which goes away at his death. So I'm reluctant to move the funds out of my retirement account through a Roth conversion. And we are both retired in the 60s. Neither of us are on Social Security or Medicare yet. What things do I need to consider in making a decision about a Roth conversion or keeping it in this 403B, which I'm assuming converts to a pension? She doesn't really specify that. That's a big decision. Here are my thoughts, Tanya, and I want to hear yours. Process, strategy, tactics. Go in the right order. What are you trying to solve for? But the initial issues I thought of, Tanya, is what are your legacy goals? One, right? Because if you have a pension, if you turn that into a pension like your husband's, that money's gone when both of you pass. So if you have legacy goals, that could hamper that. Another one was, what are your estimated RMDs if you don't convert them? Because maybe you don't need to be doing Roth conversions. Not knowing all the facts, if you're living off of pension right now, you may not have a big issue that from a tax standpoint or an RMD standpoint that's going to require you to do RMDs and have too much in taxes being taken out. So it may not even be an option for you just because Roth conversions seem to be in vogue right now. Another consideration I thought, Tanya and Ann, was, are you comfortable managing the money yourself if you convert all this and forego your pension? Do you want to have that responsibility? Or if you take the pension plus your Social Security, is that going to give you a secure retirement and sort of be the easy button? Those are some of the things I think you have to think through before you make this decision because you can't go back.
Spot on. I agree with all that. I think you made an excellent point about the Roth conversions being sort of in vogue. You know, like you open up Money Magazine and they're like all over the place, right? And my thought was, Anne, if you and your husband are doing okay on just his pension right now, maybe you're in a lower tax bracket, so a Roth conversion could be interesting. But if in fact that's all you need to live comfortably, then why fast forward the taxes? Because are you certain that you're going to be in a higher bracket later?
Yeah, one of the first things I do is estimate what are RMDs if I don't do it, right? Because if she converts it to a pension, there are no RMDs. Yeah. And it sounds like there might be that option there.
But if you convert it to a pension, then my other concern is what are your liquidity requirements? Like, are there any other buckets of money that you could use if you got some exciting new objective to buy a motorhome or to get a condo in Florida or to help your kids buy their first house? Like, are there still liquid resources? Because I wouldn't necessarily want to buy a lifetime income and eliminate maybe the only liquid assets there are.
That's a great point.
There's certainly a lot to her question for sure.
And this is always the hard part. And one reason why you shouldn't take advice from people that don't know you and know the entire situation. I mean, we can help you frame this. And I think you know that because you asked, what should you consider? Everything has to be in the context of the life that you're planning out and resources you have to marshal to fund that life, right? Because if you eliminate all your liquidity, you may have great income, but then when you really get hit with an unexpected good or bad that you have to spend money on, you're sort of stuck. And that's part of, I always feel like this is a shameless plug and it's not meant to be. That's the masterclass that we created in the Rock Retirement Club takes you step by step to map it all out so you can create these what if scenarios and see how they interact with each other. But good question, Anne. Our next question is from Julie on a new pursuit in retirement. In response to your question about, and actually it's more of a statement. I love sharing this because we get lots of feedback. In response to your question of what are you doing about personal development in retirement? This was I think a month or two ago, Tanya. She said they just bought a boat and I retired 11 months ago and my husband is retired a year earlier and I have zero experience with boats. So hopefully this is on a lake and not in the ocean. But he loves to fish and we've moved to an area with lots of lakes. Okay, good. I feel safer now for you, for boats and fishing. And this is something that we can learn to do together. He has experience with sailboats, but this will be a new learning challenge for us to work through together, which I think is awesome. When I think about this, Tanya and Julie, it's like, they always say the best day and the worst day of your life is when you buy your boat and when you sell your boat, right? A boat, I think of as a framework to go create experiences with, right? And it sounds, Julie, that you and your husband, he likes fishing. You're going to explore this and you move to a place where you can go find different experiences, whether it's jumping in the lake in the middle of the night or fishing or skiing. It's a vehicle, literally, but figuratively, it's a vehicle to go create experiences. So I think that's just awesome. And you live in the land of 10,000 lakes, Miss Nichols. I do.
My son, we just sold our lake place, but my son is 12 and he had his own boat for the last few years. And one of my favorite things was sitting on the end of the dock, watching my son sit in his boat with a little trolling motor for hours, just figuring out where the fish were in our lake. So, and then we do lots of fishing, lots of water skiing, and the kids love to tube. So I absolutely agree. A boat, it's not just a vehicle. It's totally about sharing experiences together.
So awesome for you. I love hearing these stories. Okay. Our next question is from Andy, and it's the perennial question of a retiree on chance of bad markets. So let me just read the question. What are the chances 2020 or 2021 is going to be 1929, 1969, 1999, and we'll have 15 to 20 years of zero market growth? Sequence of return is a concern in this regard. What should I do with my allocation and investments if I presume the worst?
You first.
Boom, boom, boom. Well, let's level set. One is, I do believe in understanding what the minimum effective dose of investment risk you need in order to create the life that you want. That's how we should approach it. We should get a dial of what that is and then dial up investment risk consciously rather than go to risk tolerance. So let's see here. What are the chances? Who the heck knows, right? We're a little few weeks out, but right now markets go up and down and people can't figure it out all the time, whether it's elections or inflation, everything else. So that's number one. Who knows? Like if we look back at market returns and recoveries, we've had, if I look at bear markets, which is considered a 20% drop in stocks, we've had since the 50s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 bear markets since 1956. The most recent being March. Quickest bear market anybody's ever saw, right? And even the dates that you mentioned, like 1969, that's probably before you were born, Tanya. From I think it was 68 to 83, the market return was zero, right? And so that's what I think Andy's referring to, which is true, but it's not true, right? One, the S&P 500 is not all of the market. Two, there were good years and bad years for sure. There were lots of sequence in there. It wasn't just flat, just like the lost decade of the 2000s after '08 wasn't just flat. There were good years in there. There were dividends, there were rises of dividends. So it's not just zero growth. And you can't predict these things. So I worry about sequence of risk all the time. But how do you solve for it? I think you build pie cakes or you time segment your money. Let's talk about the two big risks, right? And I'm just sort of ranting here, Tanya, so excuse me. Just jump in if you want to jump in. Sequence of return is the huge one that's in our face, especially because we're all worried about everything, understandably so. Sequence of return is the one big risk early in retirement. The other huge risk, and we've talked about, is inflation, right? So if you solve for sequence of return, you're almost by default embracing the other one. So how do you balance those two things? The way we do it, Andy, and this is how I would approach it, is time segment your money by building your cash flow model, especially early in retirement. Build a 5-year income floor to pre-fund consumption for the first 5 years of life and identify that and do that. And then you can start taking investment risk beyond that. I think that's how you inoculate yourself to sequence of return risk. And then you're a lot less worried about this and you'll give your at-risk assets from a market volatility standpoint time to statistically give you a successful outcome. Soapbox put away.
Well said.
But I don't know how else to do it.
Buckets instead of pie cakes, but I mean, really, I completely agree on all fronts. The other thing I would mention to Andy is that sequence of return risks and inflation risks that Roger's talking about, it depends on the rest of your financial picture, because you could have enough capital. Let's say the financial capital. I know you talk about social capital and some of those other things, but you could have enough financial capital to be able to sustain, let's say, a 50% loss in net worth and still have enough income to meet your needs. Hard to say. So without knowing those other pieces of the puzzle, it's hard to know that sequence of return, how that's actually going to impact somebody's financial security over the long term. Same with inflation. So I know a lot of times we focus on the risk of investment returns. And that is the great thing about things like his income floor. We do a version of that and make sure that we've got a couple years worth of income in more fixed and short-term buckets. So we just know what the story is if things are down in those first couple of years of retirement. But it's like the process, strategy, tactics that you talk about on the show. Sometimes the focus on the investment return risk, it's like a distraction from the bigger picture. Like if we step back and look at it, it's like, well, what could we really sustain? Because there are some things that are absolutely out of our control. And one of them is if the 5-year or 10-year or 1 year or 5 month, whatever those numbers are, you and I could both go and pick whatever time frame to show you 10% annualized returns or negative 10% annualized returns. We can go and strategically place those, just like finding the 69 to 83 is 0%. Well, is that everyone else's real return? Not really. So the focus on investment return risk, I think it's best to step out of that and make sure we see what the financial picture will allow for.
Yeah, and Andy makes some comments that I think play into this a little bit, Tanya. is he's pretty financially savvy. He's sat on the board and helped manage money. He's taken some CFP courses. And this reminds me of something that we were talking about earlier in business about it's very easy, especially as you get more financially savvy, to fancy things up, right? And a key quote that I go back to in my own business is don't get too fancy, keep it simple, and always focus on the things that can create the most value in your life. And sometimes when we get down the rabbit hole in financial analysis, we can want to make it more fancy than it needs to be. And so my only counsel on this, Andy, because I go through various waves, I'm sure you do, Tanya, about I'm freaked out about the world, or I'm optimistic, or I'm level set, is it's best to plan for statistically probable outcomes and test for outliers. It doesn't matter what your belief is or my belief is about the future and whether we're going to have a 29 or an 08 or a 69. It doesn't matter because we don't know anything. It doesn't matter how much research we do. That's why I don't listen to forecasters. But if we time segment ourselves enough, give us enough optionality to react to data in life as it unfolds. Because if you believe your predictions or someone else's predictions, well, then now that forces you into a whole different decision tree. You have to actually make decisions that this extreme outcome is going to happen, which has its own unintended consequences, hence the whole agile structure. You can just go around in circles on this, can't you, Tanya?
Right.
Right. Well, Tanya, thank you so much for joining me today. We'll have you back on to answer more listener questions. All right, it's the end of the month, right around Thanksgiving, and that means we have our head retirement coach, head of education in the Rock Retirement Club, BW, and you're calling in from the road. What's going on, BW?
Yes, Roger. I'm traveling between Florida and Ohio this week, and it's Thanksgiving season in the RRC. We're talking about living a life of gratitude. So I thought I'd talk to your listeners about that a little bit today.
And gratitude sounds almost trite because it's used so much, but it's really not, is it?
It's not, and it's a very powerful emotion. When I define gratitude, I call it's a thankful appreciation for what an individual receives. It can be both tangible and intangible. But did you know that giving thanks can actually make you happier?
Actually,
there's actually a lot of positive psychology research, and gratitude is strongly and very consistently in the research associated with greater happiness.
Well, a lot of it is too. I remember reading that you can't get down on yourself when you're focused on being grateful for something.
Well, that's right.
You can't hold them at the same time.
That's right. And the beauty of gratitude is it's an emotion that we can largely control because it's an attitude, I think. It's a way of looking at life, sort of the old saying, making lemonade out of lemons.
Well, I imagine we can think of this month. I mean, it's a good thing that the elections are always in November because it's a good time to try to practice some gratitude when you have some craziness going on.
Absolutely. And often you're just grateful that it's over, right?
Yes.
But the research shows that gratitude helps people feel more positive emotions. They relish good experiences more, improve their overall health, better able to deal with adversity, helps them build strong relationships. And I know you're a boss. Did you know that bosses who remember to say thank you to the people who work for them find that the employees feel more motivated to work harder?
Oh, I totally agree with that. I think, and studies show based on compensation and or enjoyment at work, money is important, but it's that knowing that people are being heard and appreciated that I think even ranks higher on a lot of studies.
That's right. I know when we talked about work benefits, we talked about that sense of utility, sense of usefulness. And certainly as an employer, if you're grateful to your employees and show them that gratitude, it will go a long way to making them feel good about their jobs and about their employer. It's really just gratitude helps people appreciate what they have instead of always reaching for something new in the hopes that something new can make them feel happier. It lets them refocus on what they have instead of what they lack in their lives. And so that's why I say you can control your sense of gratitude. Be grateful about what you have rather than yearning for what you don't have.
I think that's definitely true in the material sense. And it's a little bit of American culture because of the advertising and marketing complex of always pursue the next version, the iPhone 12 and the next whatever. One thing I discovered, BW, about gratitude when it comes to relationships, when you look at someone, it's easy to see, why can't they be this way? Why can't they be that way? And that kind of thinking builds on itself, doesn't it?
Exactly. Instead of appreciating them for who they are and the unique gifts that they have, you focus on problems or things you don't like. You're exactly right. So I heard you say this the other day, Roger, in another context, but it's so true. When you are expressing gratitude, don't just reap praise on someone. Tell them specifically what it is that they did that you appreciate, and be very specific. I thought that was a great tip you gave.
And I think that works around this thing of if you're looking at a relationship. And first off, yeah, there's something that annoys us about lots of different things and people. But if you start to praise specific things and start to give that praise before you get it, the more that other person is going to respond in a positive way. That's where the power comes from, this gratitude, for sure.
Yeah. I've got 5 tips for your listeners. This comes from Harvard Health Publishing. 5 tips to cultivate gratitude on a regular basis. You ready for them?
I got my pen.
And I want you to write these down, Roger, because this is a smart sprint for you as well. Okay. Number 1, I want you to write and send a thank you note each month to someone who's had an impact on your life. That's number 1. Number 2, each day, every single day, I want you to make a mental note and to mentally thank someone who's done something nice for you. It might just be someone who held a door open for you when your arms were full. It might be someone who did something just incredible. But every day, mentally, at least thank them mentally if you don't get to say it out loud. That's number 2. Number 3, and this one gets a little tougher for some of us who don't like to journal, but I keep a gratitude journal. Make it a habit to write down the thoughts about each week. Maybe do this once a week, the gifts that you received that week and what you're thankful for, and write it down. And then once a month, go back and look at what you wrote down. I think it'll make you feel a lot better. Number 4, if you're religious, pray. People who are religious can use the prayer to cultivate that gratitude feeling. And a lot of religions really require us to be grateful and to express gratitude. And then number 5 is to meditate. Now, we think of meditation as involving focusing on the present moment, right? And being completely present in the moment without any judgment and without external distractions. But it's possible to focus on what you're grateful for in that moment. So maybe it's the warmth of the sun on your face, or maybe it's a pleasant sound that you're hearing or a smell in the air. But as you meditate, think about what you're grateful for in that moment. Those are my 5 tips, Roger.
And those are great tips. One thing on the journaling that I discovered is, and this is challenging, when you put down the 1 or 2 things that you're thankful for each day, never let it be the same thing.
I like that.
That can be hard.
Sure.
It could be, I'm so thankful I got all these green lights on the way to Starbucks. It could be just little things, but try not to let them be the same things. This really will change your mind, change your life type of stuff. We talk about it so much, but it really is true.
Roger, have you ever seen the gratitude journals that are out there?
Yeah, actually, we had a giveaway a couple of years ago on a gratitude journal.
Okay. I love these. And I just came across them in doing my research for this month's topic. And you go onto Amazon and type in gratitude journal, and you'll see 20 different kinds for all different sorts of people. And they look very nice. So I've ordered one. I'm anxious to give it a try myself.
Yeah, I think the one that we had given away, I have a few of them left, is the 5-minute journal. So it's not just about gratitude. So it goes through, like, here's a day. It has, what am I grateful for? You write 3 things. The second question is, what would make today great? You list 3 things. And then another one of daily affirmations, I am, and then has 2 blank spots. And that's the whole day's journal, is just filling out those bullet points for those 3 questions. And then it has at night, amazing things that happened today, list 3 things. And then right below that, the question is, how could I have made today even better? List 2 things. So it's like a 5-minute just bam, 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 because journaling is a little intimidating. We all think we want to do it, but it's a hard habit to build.
Well, I think it can have a profound effect on your life if you do it. So I'm going to start and I'll report back.
Yeah, please do. And I'll work on my SMART Sprint.
On your marks, get set.
And we're off to set a little baby step that we can take over the next 7 days. It's not just rock retirement, but really rock life. Even during normal times, the holidays can be very stressful. Our internal expectations of how a day goes, how people act, can really define our experience. And it's hard sometimes to live up to those expectations. And this year we have COVID, the cloud of COVID hanging over us as well. So I don't know what your plans are for tomorrow, Thanksgiving, and over the weekend, whether you're going to shop all day Friday or stay away. But be nice to yourself. Give yourself some grace. Give everyone around you some grace and just enjoy everybody's company. Sometimes we put so much pressure on things that we fail to enjoy it. That's what I'm going to try to do. Hope you do too. Next week is December, last month of 2020. Thank you, Jesus. 2020 is almost over. December is going to be a good month. I'm going to make it a good month. I hope you make it a good month too. Now, on the show, we are talking about something that's a really important topic that you may end up facing and you may not even realize it. And it's the parent project of how do we become parents and mentors to our parents as they age. It's a big topic. It's an important topic and something that we may know is out there that we might have to face. But man, if you got to face it, it's a big journey. It's a hard journey. It can be a fulfilling journey. And hopefully we can frame this issue and give you some wisdom to at least know that it's out there. And if you're dealing with it, hopefully ease your way a little bit. And then in January, I'm already looking at January 2021. We are having a live case study with a listener. We're doing Retirement Plan Live. I'm really excited about that. We're going to try to amp it up, try to make it better, not more complicated, but better. So you get some wisdom from hearing someone else on a journey as similar to yours. So I am thankful, as always, for you, for listening and emailing and sharing, because together, if we walk together, we can definitely be wise and we can definitely rock retirement. That's so cool. Have a great Thanksgiving. Hey, it's time for that all-important disclaimer. We so appreciate you listening to the show and love your questions and love the teaching that we're able to provide here. And actually, it helps us too. But remember, you're not our clients.
Not love it if you took advice from us on the show.
We would not love it if you took advice from us on the show. Realize it's helpful in education. Talk to your legal advisor, your tax advisor, or your financial advisor before you make any decisions.
We appreciate you joining us today for this episode of Retirement Answer Man. Be sure to visit rogerwhitney.com/answers to access the Retirement Answer Library with over 30 checklists to help you make the most of the only life you have. Remember, you have more power than you realize to create an amazing life starting today with Retirement Answer Man. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance referenced is historical and no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Have a wonderful day.